All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. I'm Nick, and this is our daily Cowboys show. So, how we feeling, right? Obviously, not the final result any of us wanted. I think the performance, though, was probably better than a lot of us expected. I think there's a lot of things to be positive about, a lot of things to be disappointed about. But I think when we look at this first performance, the way the season started as a whole, and be honest and take a step back, I would say not bad, right? Still a lot of room to go, a lot of things to improve on, still a disappointing outcome. But I think what we saw from Dallas against Philadelphia last night, pretty solid effort. And look, it's a late night with the rain delay. There's a lot of funky things. There's a wild kind of game, kind of an interesting situation. But all in all, I think a decent enough performance to feel relatively positive about this 2025 campaign. Let's get into the data to start talking about the performance itself. Let's pull up the box score, the team stats here. And you can see here, this was a very even game if you look at the raw data. And the score kind of bared that out, right? And the game flow kind of bared that out. First downs about the same, third down efficiency about the same, total plays about the same, total yards about the same, yards per play, Dallas with a slight advantage, passing, Dallas with a slight advantage or a little bit of advantage, about 40 yards there, rushing, Eagles with about a 40-yard advantage there, yards per rush, Dallas had the advantage, but most of that was on the back of a 50-yard run. If you look at this, really, the two key stats here that jump out to me was obviously the red zone there at the bottom, that one fumble from Sanders. Obviously, that was a huge play. And then I think the penalties, right? People want to talk about the drops with CeeDee Lamb, and those were absolutely gigantic. But let's not forget the Philadelphia Eagles made a lot of mistakes in their own right. So a lot of people look at the drops from CeeDee Lamb and say that cost Dallas the game. I'm like, well, that's certainly a very valid point to make. But the Eagles made a lot of really stupid penalties. They made a lot of dumb personal fouls. Of course, the Jalen Carter penalty to get things going. So for a week one performance, it was sloppy, as you're going to get in week one, right? So CeeDee Lamb, sloppy. Jalen Carter, sloppy. A lot of really good players got a little sloppiness out there. I think when you look at the stats, though, a lot of people viewed Philly coming into this game saying they're the better team, more talented team, better coach team, everything you want. They're just significantly better at home. Dallas no longer has Micah Parsons. They don't stand a chance. Ain't even going to be close, right? There were a lot of people that said, listen, Philly's a huge favorite, 7.5, 8.5 point favorite. That was one of the biggest spreads of week one, and people are like, it's going to be worse than that. Right, a lot of people were thinking it's going to be like I was saying it's like this has a little bit of a chance to be like 2014 week one against San Francisco, where Dallas got the brakes beaten off of it, but bear with it. It would take some time to figure out the season. And look, the Cowboys, to their credit, did a really good job with coaching, competing, and playing for the most part, right? And this was one of the things as I watched the game unfold and after the game, one of my first thoughts was, Philadelphia is better talent-wise, but the gap is not as big as I would have felt, right? Obviously, week one is hard to really ascertain over the course of a long season, but the gap was not nearly as big as I would have felt. And number two, the coaching on Dallas helped make up for that gap. And when is the last time the Cowboys went into a game and you got a really clear indication that their coaching on both sides of the football allowed them to overcome maybe some talent deficiencies? Usually it's the other way around with Dallas, right? Usually, really going back to the Bill Parcells days, that, nothing against McCarthy or Garrett or Phillips, but it's just the reality where you felt like, the coaching was holding the team back. Like, if they just had better coaching, they would have won. Or, gosh darn it, the coaching prevented the players. That was not the case. Great game plan, great play calling. Schottenheimer, all that talk of vanilla stuff, he came out and they backed it up. Two really great drives, really good offensive first half. The rain delay killed both teams. It was one of those weird things where both teams it was like a good heavyweight fight. It was a really entertaining game, if I'm sure from an outsider's perspective, where you saw both teams offensive right down the field, all basically deep into the third quarter. Then, of course, you have the rain delay, lightning delay, whatever they want to call it, weather delay, I guess, technically, and then it becomes a defensive slugfest, right? And it was just one of those things, both sides. It was just a weird game how that played out. Really kind of interesting. It speaks to, again, how close the Cowboys are in talent to the best team in football, best team in the NFC by pretty much everyone's estimation, even without Micah Parsons and still without DeMarvion Overshown, Trayvon Diggs on a pitch count, right? There's a lot of Booker, rookie right guard, and I know the Eagles, obviously Jalen Carter had his stupidity, Dickerson's battling with some injuries, so it's not like the Philadelphia Eagles, they got their own little issues to concern about too, but all things considered, the talent gap not nearly as wide as I would have thought, and number two, now I still say the Philadelphia Eagles were a better, more talented team, that's why they won, right? Both teams made mistakes, Eagles more talented, they won the game, I think that's fair, but the coaching, my goodness, you talk about the coaching for the Cowboys, I'm going to give it a B plus effort. I think from a player's perspective, it was a B minus. I think from a coaching perspective, it was a B plus. It was a solid B. You lose a close game on the road to one of the best teams in football. Let's take it a step back. If the Baltimore Ravens lose 24-20 in Philadelphia, people are like, with a chance to win. It was a close competitive game, with these kind of stat line. They say, well, that's what you would expect. Two really good teams on the road. Heck, it's going to happen. The Kansas City Chiefs, if they went to Philadelphia and played this kind of game, yeah, that's going to happen, right? The Los Angeles Rams, the Detroit Lions, right? So I think there was this theme in the social media sphere and a lot of the talking heads after the game. And I'm really curious what develops in the days to come, where it's like, the Cowboys had a really good chance here to steal one because they played pretty well. But I want to take one step back against that before we get into more data, is that this is not like 2021. Okay, in 2021, Dallas played Tampa week 1, Thursday Night Football in Tampa. Very similar thing. Tampa coming off the Super Bowl, Tom Brady. Dallas kept that close. They won the turnover battle, I think, like 4-2. Right, they won it. That game they were in on the back of takeaways. They found a way to get a bunch of takeaways, including one late where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were about to drive to put the game away. Right, go up 2 scores with like 3 minutes to go. Instead, the Cowboys force a takeaway as they're about to go in to score, like at the 1 yard line, fall on the ball, it's a touchback. They get the football, they go down, score to take the lead, and Tom Brady does Tom Brady things. Right, that was a little bit of a different game. Dak Prescott played out of his mind, threw for over 400 yards. Right, they won the turnover battle by 4-2, if I remember correctly. This was different. Right, Dallas lost the turnover battle. Now, the Eagles made their own mistakes, like with the penalties and things like that, but it wasn't like Dallas won the turnover battle. They had 4 or 5 takeaways. It wasn't like Dak Prescott, who had a very good game, mind you, but it's not like he threw for 380 yards or 500 yards or whatever, right? It was not that kind of game. Dallas went toe-to-toe and played Philly's game, right? The game went the way Philly likes to play. Physical, ground and pound, Jalen Hurts doing things, ugly, kind of nasty. That's not the way Philly likes to play. They're a defensive, run the football, Jalen Hurts, composure, third down team. That's how they want to play. And that game was exactly how the game went. And that's exactly what the Eagles got. They got their game, and it was a very, very close game. I think it's a good sign for Dallas. Again, week 1 doesn't mean anything. Listen, they could go 1-16. They could go 12-5. We don't know, right? So I'm not going to throw too much one way or the other. But from just a perspective of expectations versus performance and being positive about it, I think there's a lot to really like. All right, let's get more into the data here. We talk about the box score. We talk about passing. Prescott. Numbers are very misleading here. He was much better than this. Had a couple really good downfield throws that just couldn't get completed. Obviously, the diving catch, that would have been ridiculous. That would have been sort of a makeup for the drop on that 4th down. I think he had the deep seam route. That was really the killer. There was an in-breaking route that he also dropped as well, where the ball bounced off his helmet that people are very critical of. I give him a little bit of pass there, and I think Collinsworth noted it on the broadcast. He's a former wide receiver, so he bears a little weight with this. Is that when you're trying to run that in-breaking route, you got a clear out route from the inside, the vertical, and Turpin kind of was got jammed up, couldn't get through there very cleanly. It's one of those things where you're trying to wait for the receiver in front of you to pass, and you pass and you see him right in front of you, so you have to kind of like, okay, you see a lot of color in front of you, you see your teammate in front of you, and you're like, okay, got to avoid the turn the balls right on your face mask, right? It's one of those things where should he have made the play? Yes, but it's a lot tougher catch than a lot of people realize just because of the timing of the route, right? And again, this is one of those things where week 1 stuff like that's going to happen, right? You hope it gets corrected going forward, and that speaks to the CeeDee Lamb numbers. You can see him right there, 7 catches, $110. He played well. I mean, obviously, in terms of productivity, until the drops exploded down the stretch in the 4th quarter. But I will give Lamb one pass here, and the reality is there was no guarantee they were going to win anyway, right? It wasn't like he was behind the defense and it was a touchdown with 30 seconds to go, right? The Eagles, even if they would have scored with a minute left, the Eagles had already proven they could kick a 58-yard field goal, right? We had no idea what would happen over the course of the game. Obviously, the Cowboys' chances of winning would have gotten a lot better, but it's not like CeeDee Lamb's drops. It wasn't like it's a basketball where it was a wide-open 3-point shot with 1 second to go, at the buzzer, right? And he airballed it, right? He airballed a game-tying 3 with a minute to go is essentially the comparison I would make there, and the analogy, excuse me. And look, disappointing performance, no doubt. But I think, look, it wasn't like it's not as dramatic as people want to make it out to be. And going forward, I think we could realistically say CeeDee Lamb's not going to drop 3 passes in a game every single game the rest of the way. I mean, it's one of the worst games of his entire career in terms of drops. And the Cowboys still, again, this is the point I'm making. They didn't exactly play great. They didn't catch every break you could imagine. They lost the turnover battle. Their star receiver didn't play fantastic. And they were this close to winning. That's a really good sign. You can see the running attack there. Javonte Williams, 15 for 54, 2 scores. Very solid, hard running, physical. Love to see that. Very physical game. Dallas Cowboys took it. Again, the Eagles want to play physical and tough. That's how they want to play. And that's exactly how Dallas played. And it was an even match. Good sign for Dallas. Sanders had that long run. That fumble was absolutely it's just a tough break. But it's also one of those things that it's unfortunate. I don't want to say fumbles happen, but they do, right? They just do. You hate it. You're disgusted. The best running backs, Elliott, Emmitt Smith, Dorsett in Cowboys history and NFL history, Barkley fumbles, right? All these guys turnovers happen. It's one of those things you hate to see it, but look, it's a reality. It's a fact of life. It doesn't excuse it, but it just happens. And that's when I go back to my other point. The Cowboys fumbled in the red zone. CeeDee Lamb had a lot of drop passes, right? As the season kind of plays forward, you can sit there and say, well, obviously missed opportunity here potentially, but they almost beat the defending Super Bowl champs. I know almost beat is just loss. I get that. But they played well and had a real chance to win despite making all these mistakes. It was far from a perfect game from Dallas, and they went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in football. So, again, the numbers bear that out here. And it's not like, again, Pickens, 3 catches for 30 yards, drew a big pass interference penalty. He had a good impact. Ferguson did some good things. Turpin had, again, some good touches. I love the way they used Turpin. A few carries, a few receptions. Doesn't have to be anything special. Just, keep getting him involved. I think Tolbert did not play particularly well, did not block well, had no real impact. I think it's a tough situation. I mean, Flournoy may play more going forward, but he did not block well at all. Brevin Spanford, good blocker. Shoemaker didn't really get a lot of opportunities. You can see going forward, offensively, not a whole lot of stat filling up right there, except for CeeDee Lamb's 100-yard game, who for 3 quarters was playing great. Just a tough fourth quarter for the great receiver. All right, talk about defensively. This was a battle, right? And I mean, this was a team unit. We talked about team. They did a lot of good things, right? Again, really rough start, really strong finish, rain delay affected, or weather delay, whatever the heck they want to call it. Both teams, right, obviously offenses kind of slowed down after that, which would make sense, right? It's one of those things, offense is about rhythm, and the more plays that a defense gets of an offense, usually the better they get. Because an offense, in terms of a game plan, you have like 30 or 40 plays and some counters and things you set up, but after you run out of that, that you kind of just then go back into sort of base stuff, or you're repeating plays. And it's sort of like a great hitter. The more in baseball, the more he sees a pitcher, the better he's going to get at hitting it, right? And an offense is like a pitcher to a hitter's defense. So if the more the defense, like the hitter, sees that offense, sees the pitcher, the better and better he gets at defending it. And down the stretch, the Cowboys absolutely outstanding with a lot of clutch defense. Again, 3 points surrendered in the entire second half. Phenomenal work by the Dallas Cowboys defensively. A lot of credit, a lot of 3-and-outs. Gave the Cowboys a chance, right? I think that's all you can want for this defense. I mean, you look at the stats here. I thought Murray's second in tackles was okay. I thought Elam, well, except for that one big play, which was tough. It was one of those situations. They didn't get enough pressure on the quarterback on that play. They kind of focused their attention on Goddard, Brown, and Devontae Smith. It's the old Bill Belichickism, right? Like, listen, take away what they want to do, right? They kept Hurts in the pocket on that play. They took away the top 3 receivers. So you take away what they want to do best, and if their number 4 guy beats you, and that's exactly what happened with that big play. But otherwise, I thought Elam played very well. Damone Clark, kind of a mixed bag. I was kind of surprised to see him get as much playing time as he did. I think Solomon Thomas was outstanding. I think Sanborn was good. Sam Williams, I think, and Kenny Clark right there in the middle of the screen, good job. Nealon, good job. Oso Digizua, not a whole lot for him, but I don't think it was terrible. Houston, big tackle for loss. He did some good things. Dante Fowler and Ezraku, I think they were probably, certainly in the first half, they were F performers. In the first half, like Ezraku, rookie, it's going to happen. Gets a good competition, but Fowler missed a lot of tackles, lost contain. Second half was better. Ezraku got a good pressure. I think he did some good things against the run. But I think one thing about the defense that was clear was it was a good team effort, right? It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot of good team play, a lot of hustling, rallying to the football. Ezraku especially, hustling machine. Love to see that from a rookie. I mean, it wasn't his best day by far. Like, it was an F first half, and I think my feeling was probably like a B minus, C plus second half, graded out probably like a D if I had to guess overall. But boy, talking about effort, hustle, flying to the football, good stuff from the defense. Again, far from perfect, a lot of things to work on. Kenny Clark had a nice debut, but a lot of people looked at this Dallas defense and said, listen, they can't stop anybody. And listen, they held the Eagles 300 yards, right? They did a lot of good things, and this is without takeaways, right? They didn't win on third down. They got only 1 sack the entire game. By the way, how about this Cowboys O-line surrendering 0 sacks? Love to see that. Again, it was the game the Eagles wanted to play. It was the kind of game they love to play. Run the football, make negative plays on defense, stop the run. That's how they want to play. And the Cowboys said, okay, we'll play you at that game, and they went toe-to-toe with them. Not bad. All right, I want to show the Eagles numbers here because I want to highlight, again, defensively. Jalen Hurts was 19 of 23 for $152, but the crazy part about that is that about 50 of that 152 was on one play. So he had 18 completions for 100 yards. And I don't know if that's going to be a theme going forward, but boy, oh boy, if the Cowboys defense can surrender 5 yards of completion, even at a lot of short throws, That's going to be really frustrating for a lot of offenses, right? And what it's going to do, it's going to keep a lot of games horrendously close over the course of the season because there's going to be fewer possessions, ball control, third and fourth downs are going to be huge, drop passes are going to be huge, special teams is going to be huge. But it's clear that was their strategy against Philly. We'll see how it works out the rest of the season. But I like it, right? It's one of those things where under Quinn and even last year under Zimmer at times, it was like, we want to make big plays on defense. We want to get pick sixes. We want to get takeaways to the extreme. We want to get sacks to the extreme. And hey, listen, if we surrender a big play, who cares? We'll get a pick six the next play, right? Trayvon Diggs, a famous example of that, right? He gets a pick six against New England in 2021, and then gives up a long touchdown the next play. I'm like, it all works out. I think for me, Dallas was much more fundamentally sound, much more team-oriented. Again, 1 week, one small sample size, but I like to see that. Jalen Hurts was the team's leading rusher. They held Saquon Barkley to 3.5 yards, 3.3 yards per carry, Shipley had one 20-yard run. But that was pretty much it in his productivity. I mean, outside of quarterback runs and losing contain in the first half, this run defense was pretty darn good against a really good running team, obviously. So again, credit to Eberflus for adjusting and credit to the defense team effort. Right? Again, 158 rushing yards is a lot. I don't want to, just cheer it on too much. But overall, when you look at the fact that 62 of that was quarterback scrambles and quarterback runs, I mean, there's only so much you can do in that situation, right? You have to have better lane discipline, and when they didn't have it in the first half, better in the second half. But good job by the Cowboys defensive staff and good job by the players. Again, team defense. We saw that last night, and it was good to see for the first time in a long time. Right, we've seen Dallas win games and dominate with what felt like team defense, but it really was, hey, so and so got a sack on this play, so they get a stop, or someone got a pick on this play and they get a stop, or but it wasn't like a lot of great team effort working together. It wasn't, hey, little pressure on the quarterback, keep him in the pocket, throw I'll give you an example. That third down towards the end of the game, they flush Jalen Hurts. They have, I think it's Williams loop around. He's right in his face. Hurts can't scramble, has to throw it to the sideline. Elam has a good tackle, forces him back into his help, and Bland is there, to finish him off. And my first thought when I saw that was, okay, they have good pocket push by the linebacker and defensive tackles on the quarterback, flush the quarterback, the loop around defensive ends does his job there and contain, forces the quarterback to throw it short of the sticks, and then two DBs rally with good tackles, physical tackles, clean tackles to hold them well short of the first down marker. And I was just like, that's good team defense. In years past, it would have been, okay, can Parsons make the sack? Can Lawrence make the sack? If not, well, I guess can one of these DBs on an island make a play? That wasn't the case last night. It was about execution and as a group, right? Really good sign for the Cowboys. Again, long term, I know this season, we're in the middle of the season, want to see Dallas do well. But long term, what they've shown in week one is just what they've shown and talked about all offseason was doing things as a team, building for the future. And I liked a lot of what we saw. And you can see on the bottom there, I mean, listen, A.J. Brown had one catch. Devontae Smith had 3 catches. Between 4 catches for 24 yards between those guys. Credit Bland, Diggs, Elam, and the crew for generally a good game. Goddard, 7 catches. He was active, but we're talking 44 yards. I mean, Barkley had an incredible one-handed catch and yards after catch. I mean, he's a really great player. Barkley played well, right? It's one of those things. It's not like, Barkley had a bunch of drops and a bunch of fumbles. It's not like the Eagles, just missed a bunch of kicks and had turnovers out the wazoo, right? The Eagles played good football. And Dallas was right there with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's a good sign. All right, let's get into some of the nitnoid here. All right, this is from 32 Beat Writers. I saw this on social media. This is at the end of the first half, and I'll talk about coaching, right? So there's like Dallas Cowboys clock management competence, right? Like, hey, look at that, right? At the end of the first half, they managed that absolutely beautifully with the time and getting a reasonably good kick, which of course Ari was able to easily deliver instead of relying on a magical 65-yarder. And again, it speaks to the new era of coaching, right? And coaching making it easier for the players. In years past, the Cowboys may have mismanaged that a little bit, and they've sent out Aubrey to kick a 60-yarder, and he may have made it. Right? But it puts a lot of pressure on your stars to always have to make these incredible plays. Instead, they manage it very, very well. Short throw to Pickens, short throw to CeeDee Lamb. They manage the clock very good, manage the timeouts well, get a little gift from the Eagles with a penalty on their part, and they move from their own, 13, I think, at the beginning of the drive, all the way comfortably to the 35-yard line and get 3 points before half. Good clock management. This is one of those things that was a disaster under Mike McCarthy, had a lot of issues under Jason Garrett as well. Good job by Schottenheimer. Again, the two things we wanted from Schottenheimer really in terms of on a game basis, right? Play calling strategy, offensive structure, really, really good. Good script, a lot of good plays, a lot of creativity. Grew to see that. Haven't seen the film yet, but it looked really good on broadcast. And number 2, how do you manage the game, right? Because that was something McCarthy struggled with. Good job here by Schottenheimer. Again, this is some positivity. Coaching making it easier for the players for the first time in a long time in Dallas. Good to see. All right, this next report here was from an account I like called Bad Sports Refs, just because it highlights a lot of interesting things. And it was a personal foul, I think, that was called on Maris Leofau when he had his helmet ripped off, and then he responded by trying to rip someone else's helmet off. And this was just sort of a theme. It was a little, obviously Eagles Cowboys, right? It's going to be a little feisty, a little physical. But I think one of the things that frustrates me with officiating on these kind of plays, because everyone is always like, it's always the second person. It's always the second person. And everyone knows it. Even the officials know it. At a certain point, the officials, I'm tired of, I'm not saying like Leofau shouldn't have been penalized. You either have to let it go or just start making these offsetting penalties. Because obviously Leofau, he gets flagged for what he does after this, right? He has his helmet ripped off, right? His look, you can see his hair, right? You can see Cooper DeJean has this helmet in his hand. And so you have an official come in and sit there and say, you can see officials there at the top of the screen. Oh, Leofau responded by ripping someone's helmet off. Okay, you can call that a foul. It's fine. That's fair. But you can also see that the Philadelphia Eagle has Leofau's helmet in his hand. And I'm not saying this costs him a gain or anything, but this is just a pet peeve I have of officiating, where let's just be, relatively consistent here. I think it's the stupidest thing in football. Such a cliche where it's like, well, they always get the second guy. I don't care. Right? Get everybody for committing whatever foul, right? If the first guy didn't commit a foul, maybe it's a little shove and the second guy then turns around and clocks him, I get that. But if both guys commit the same foul and you sit there and say, well, we're only going to penalize the second guy, as an official, you're failing. You're failing at your job, and you need to stop that. We have to stop allowing that. Well, they always get the second guy. That can't be the standard, right? We gotta do better as officiating, as we gotta do better as a football consuming public to sit there and say no. Whoever commits the foul, whether the first guy or the 50th guy, needs to be called out on it. All right, this next here is Cowboys defensive tackle Mazi Smith is inactive for tonight's game. They played Jay Toy, a rookie 7th-round pick, and I don't think he did particularly well by any stretch of the imagination, but it speaks a lot of what Schottenheimer's talking about, right? Culture. You got to earn your reps. You got to find a way to really earn your way onto this football field. And I think Mazi Smith, I've said before, is probably on his way out. I think they kept him on the 53 and made him a healthy scratch just because he's played a lot of football. He's experienced, right? It's one of those things where he did maybe just enough to not reserve an outright cut. They don't save any cap space. I was corrected on this a few weeks ago. I appreciate viewers for always fact-checking me. I'm serious about that, by the way. If I say something wrong, please fact-check me. They could have cut Mazi Smith. They said, no, we're going to keep him on the 53. But like Schottenheimer, meritocracy. Listen, man, you didn't earn enough in the preseason and practice to play or to dress. Love the mindset here. Again, culture, meritocracy. You earn your reps. You earn your opportunities. And I think the Cowboys, I think they sent a good message here. Again, Schottenheimer, with what he did again week 1 against Philly, culture, play calling, game management. Those are sort of the things you want from a coach. Avoiding stupid things. Now, there weren't any opportunities, anything to do anything drastically idiotic. I kept waiting, wondering if there's going to be like a stupid fake punt or something like that just to really flip the game or anything like that. But I thought all in all, it was a well-played, well-managed game from Schottenheimer. And it's one of those things that's frustrating with Dallas is how many times in the past has Cowboys lost a close game where they did get a lot of takeaways or they did play better than this because their coach did something very foolish, right? And Garrett did it in the past. I think Mike McCarthy did it once or twice. And it's just one of those things where it's like, the alignment of everything with Dallas over the past couple of decades where coach does a good job game management, quarterback plays well, you've got good talent. I think last night we saw coach, good job game management. I thought we saw quarterback playing well. I thought we saw player execution and talent a little less than the opponent. Close game on the road against a really good team. That's the difference right there. But listen, you got to get coach right. You got to get quarterback right. And what we saw last night, the Cowboys, one game, small sample size. That's very fair. It looks like they got those two right as of right now. So we'll see what happens going forward. All right, just an interesting, I normally make this kind of my stat of the day to get things going, but I just thought I'd throw this in at the end here. Talking about the prices to get into week 1 matchups, the cheapest is Arizona, New Orleans, it's $30. The middle is about New York, Washington, $140. And then at the very bottom there, you got Cowboys, Eagles at $400, $381.15. Absolutely bonkers there. It speaks to the power of the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, Philadelphia, big game for them, unveiling the banner, all that kind of stuff. Really, really good team at home. Of course, Eagles being a traditional NFL power, right? Or not necessarily NFL power, but NFL franchise. Really good the past decade or so. So, I mean, that makes sense. But boy, it just speaks to the outright dominance of the Dallas Cowboys, of their brand, of how much they outclass everybody in terms of the attention, the eyeballs. I mean, this is a huge game for everyone involved, the media, teams, players across the board, the NFL. This is just the power of the Dallas Cowboys brand. All right, I want to get to some comments from yesterday. I'll keep it obviously because some of the comments were about questions for the game that got answered. Look, I'm going to throw my final 2 cents in here before I get to the comments. I think one of the things going forward for Dallas will be, what can they garner from this? Can they keep this momentum up of Prescott playing well, Schottenheimer calling a good game, and defense adjusting and finding a way to make it work, right? I think they showed some good stuff. 0-1 is still disappointing. A loss is a loss, right? And I will say a lot of people felt like this always a good opportunity for the Cowboys to steal a win. I didn't really get that vibe. I thought it was an opportunity certainly for the Cowboys to win, but it was a sloppy week one. The Eagles with the penalties, the Cowboys with the drops and the fumble. It was one of those games where, in fact, the Eagles dropped an interception that could have really iced the game late in the game. So again, it's not one of those things where, I think they had a second dropped interception off a deflection from one of the defensive tackles, probably should have caught it. So there were opportunities for Philly too, right? So it was a sloppy week one game. These kind of things happen. Dallas went toe to toe with one of the best teams in football. On the road, with a new scheme, offense, defense. Michael Parsons no longer there, like literally eyeing the future in terms of how they want to structure and put forth a solid showing. A lot of things to like about it going forward. I think we'll have to see how Dallas plays. Obviously, it's going to be a long season. I still think September is going to be a tough month for Dallas, but I do think they surprised a lot of people to the upside, and they're going to be a feisty team. There's going to be a lot of close games the entire season. You guys are going to have to buckle up. Again, get on your heart medication if you need it, because we're going to see a lot of one-score games. That's my opinion. More one-score games than we've seen probably since, I don't know, like 2018, probably even more, right? This is going to be a very cardiac tense filled campaign. All right, into the comments. Again, highlight, as I always do, the members first. So if you want to get your comments always answered, become a member. There's a link in the description box below. David Dobbins, 5887, commented. He wanted, his prediction for the score was Dallas 30, Philadelphia 17. I like our wide receivers. I like our tight ends in this game. I'm hoping for a respectable run game. I predict the Cowboys negating the run and Hurts over it. The tight ends and Tolbert have a big day. Aubrey's the MVP, 30-17. Well, obviously that prediction didn't turn out to be true, but I do think you hit on a few good points there. That the wide receiver play was obviously pretty good, except for CeeDee Lamb's drops through 3 quarters. Tight ends, Ferguson did some good things. Run game was very respectable, and the Cowboys didn't quite negate the run, but they did a good job. But they couldn't stop Jalen Hurts, obviously, in the first half. And look, honestly, if you want to say what the difference of the game was, you can sit there and say Sanders has fumbled. That's a big part of it. I think the drops from CeeDee Lamb and the penalties from Philadelphia, I would say those kind of offset each other when it's all said and done. But I think the big difference was those a couple third down situations where the Cowboys could not contain Jalen Hurts in the first half, right? Chances to force field goals, chances to get off the field, and they couldn't quite do it. I think it's one of those things that hurt Dallas, obviously, and it's something that going forward they'll have to correct, but they did in the second half. And again, this is sort of my point here. Dallas Cowboys is going to be trying to improve and fix problems. We're going to do a lot of problem solving in-game and post-game, game-to-game, week-to-week. It's different than what we saw in 2022, 2023, and what they're trying to do in 2024, where we were like, hey, the talent is what the talent is. They got to live up to the talent. Coaching has to be better. Now it's about getting these young players, these new players. Hey, Ezeraku. Hey, Williams. Hey, Nealand, who have played a really good game, by the way. Really impressed by Nealand. Hey, Kenny Clark. Hey, Toya, right? You got, hey, new linebackers to the team, Sanborn and Murray, right? Hey, Kyrie Elam, new to the team. And of course, the rookie on offensive line, things like that. Guy in year 2 had a really nice game in his own right. He played really well, I think. Again, haven't seen the film. Pickens, new guy, right? You go across the board and say, hey, getting better week to week, getting more integrated week to week. That's going to be big for Dallas. Sigma Mu Delta commented, lost Parsons but filled holes in the defense. I see a more balanced team. Now Dak has solid options and targets, given the O-line protects him. Hope this gamble of losing Parsons plays out. It could go either way, and tonight will be the measure. Well, I think that's a bold thing to sit there and say last night the game will be the measure. But if it is the measure, you would sit there and say, I mean, the loss of Micah Parsons, do we think if Parsons played and Kenny Clark didn't, that this is a different game? I think it's probably the same kind of game. I think maybe on one of these scrambles with Jalen Hurts, they get a sack and force a punt at a different part in the game. And I think they give up a few more yards on the running game inside, and the Eagles get maybe a score in the second half that they otherwise didn't get. So I think you get a same kind of game. Maybe they win, maybe they don't. But I think if you're going to use last night game week 1 as the measure of whether the Parsons trade was a disaster for Dallas or not, I mean, I don't think if Kenny Clark isn't there, who helped get it, Marshawn Nealand was credited with 1 sack, of course, but Kenny Clark was right there. He had a good push, a lot of good things in the run game. If you get rid of Kenny Clark and have Micah Parsons start for the Dallas Cowboys, and you have to play Mozzie Smith and Jay Toya the entire game, how do you think that game goes? I don't think the Cowboys win. I think that if anything, the score could have been worse, right? Because the Eagles obviously tried to run the football in the middle, didn't have a lot of success. I think it's very interesting. It's week one game, one sample size. But boy, oh boy, you talk about picking up the cash and 2 first-round picks to essentially have the same performance in terms of a defense, maybe even a little bit better team performance, perhaps. Looks that way to me. I think it's a good sign going forward. At least, again, talking long-term for the Cowboys. Short term, I mean, Michael Parsons is such a great player, right? You love to have him, and he made the defense better. That's undeniable. Sweet Smasher commented, "What's up, brother? Relatively new subscriber and really dig your show. Thank you. I really appreciate that." Speaking of Micah's $47 million, he went from a state with 0 income tax to a state with one of the highest, going from Texas to Wisconsin. It's going to come out in the wash, but leaving it's going to cost him millions, especially when he does retire. It's one of those things that is a valid point. I mean, you can also look at cost of living, right? Theoretically, if Green Bay versus, DFW areas, a little bit different. Of course, Dallas, Fort Worth is going to be much more expensive depending, of course, where you choose to live. I would assume he would live in a much more expensive area. But I think one of the things going forward is, when I talked about this at the time, was the difference in media market attention. Right, when Micah Parsons had an interview talking about his time with the Packers about a week or so after the trade, there were 2 Cowboys headlines that were above him on the docket. It was the Micah Part, like in terms of like how ESPN listed their top stories for the day, and the 2 Cowboys headlines I think were Deron Bland extension and Leroy Jordan passing away. Right, so it's one of those things. It's like you are now third fiddle, right? The two top Cowboy storylines are now more important than you, Micah Parsons, in Green Bay in terms of getting media attention and media clicks, and that's a hit on your net worth, right? Your podcast is going to get fewer views, right? Assuming he still does it, right? Your sponsorship deals are going to go way down, right? Your marketability is going to go way down, right? It's one of those things where you're one of the faces of football. Now you're just sort of one of the faces of Wisconsin, maybe, right? So it's one of those things to understand that when you make these kind of trades and moves, some players do this. It's like Tony Pollard when he went to Tennessee. He was about as good with the Titans in last season as he was with the Dallas Cowboys in 2023, which was not great, but still a very capable running back. No one talked about him. When he was with Dallas in 2023, people were saying, listen, he's a former Pro Bowler, he's a good player. With the Titans, people are like, is Tony Pollard still playing in the National Football League? That's what happens when you leave Dallas, right? It's just a fact of life. Like it or love it, it's just a reality, and Parsons is going to have to deal with it. But thanks for commenting, man. I really appreciate it, and thanks for the nice comments, right? Try to do my best here. All right, this is from Delta704. They should consider trading Dak away over the next 3 years before his contract is up as well, if we're truly trying to rebuild. It's one of those things because his contract, the way it is, and this is, again, the one issue with Prescott's contract, is it's just such an albatross to move. So that's one of the factors that always goes into it. Who has the cap space and who is willing to use cap space, even if they have it, for Prescott in a trade? So would you be willing to trade Prescott for a third-round pick? No, right? So it's one of those things, right? Because Micah Parsons, being the quality player he was, and because a team could now sign him to a deal with the structure they wanted, whether it was good or bad, it made him more of a marketable guy. And that's why a lot of people sit there and say Cowboys should have gotten more with Parsons. One of the issues hurting the Cowboys for getting a lot of value is some team would have to give up $47 million a year APY, annualized per year, in terms of their cap hit to sign Parsons. And that lowers the availability in terms of pool of teams that are able and willing to acquire Micah Parsons, even though Parsons, just on a strictly rating scale, was a significantly better player than Prescott. Nothing against Prescott. That's just how good Parsons was and is, right? I think he'll do a lot of good things with Green Bay. But I think Prescott, because of where he is, his age right now, and just his contract situation, by the time he gets any sort of trade value, maybe in 2 years, right? You're going to trade him the way the Falcons traded Matt Ryan for a third-round pick, right? You don't get really anything serious in return. And I think if they get a guy, if they find a quarterback they like, and Milton becomes that guy in a year or two, maybe it makes sense. But I think at this point, the reality is. You've got Prescott here for the foreseeable future. That's just a fact, right? His contract is just so prohibitive to any kind of trade. And if you would trade him in a few years, what return would you get? Probably pretty minimal. This is Peter Candelario commented, great job, brother. One of the best shows on YouTube. Keep making it make sense. This run defense could surprise a lot of people. I really think we leave Philly victorious. Something is brewing. Cowboys fans, strap in. It's going to be one hell of a ride. Yeah, it did surprise to the upside, the run defense, right? Again, Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher, right? Talking about a lot of scrambles. So that's not necessarily the run defense. That's part of pass rush, right? In terms of lane integrity. They did a good job on Saquon Barkley, held him under 3.5 yards a carry. right? I mean, they obviously didn't come away with a victory, but boy, oh boy, they went toe to toe with Philly, right? It's again one of those things. I think they played better than people thought. I think the Eagles, outside the penalties, they played well. I mean, they good special teams from Philadelphia generally, no disastrous turnovers, right? Nothing, no massive coverage breakdowns where they left someone wide open or anything like that, right? It was one of those games where Philadelphia played their game the way they like to play it in a style of manner that beat Washington 55-23 in the playoffs, absolutely obliterated the Kansas City Chiefs up 40-0, 40-6 at some point against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Handled the Rams in the divisional round in Philadelphia. They played that kind of game, and Dallas was right there. So again, good, there was a run defense surprise to the upside. A lot of things surprised to the upside. Still a little bit of a missed opportunity for Dallas, but I don't really. It wasn't like it was if CeeDee Lamb catches those footballs, if Sanders doesn't fumble, it doesn't like they were guaranteed to win anyway, right? It's one of those things that you never know what would have happened down the stretch. Could have certainly helped their case, definitely, but I think it definitely was a good game, good performance all around. For as much of a loss, it can be a good performance. All right, let's see here. This is from Art Vanderlei, 6974. I agree with you on the Parsons Hall. The Cowboys were not getting anything significantly better than what they received from the Packers. Those who believe they could have are dreaming. This isn't the Herschel Walker era without a salary cap, and players weren't making salary cap constraining money of $40 million or more. 100% correct. Right. This is one of the things people are forgetting. It's like, how could they not get 5 first-round picks and all this? Like, listen, the Green Bay Packers, the fact that they were willing to give up Kenny Clark, who played well, and I think will continue to play well, and 2 first-round picks for Parsons, considering how big his contract is, that's a win for Dallas. So I think they got a solid haul. Not a spectacular haul, but about as much as you could expect. All right, 77Z Henry, I want to highlight this because I think this is really good. I think we split. Eagles barely get this one, and we light them up at home. We win both against Giants and split with Washington. Hey, there you go. You called it. Eagles barely got this one. All right, and I just missed this comment. I apologize. From a member. This is my bad, Robert. Robert Bass, 3667. I missed this comment from member. Members I usually read first, so my mistake, Robert. I'll correct it next time. He commented, Nick, we are either nervous or excited or both. Tonight is game 1. Hope we win. But I agree there is much turnover in personnel, so I'm excited. I believe we will gel, maybe even starting tonight. Just hope we make a game out of it. We'll certainly made a game out of it. And again, it'll take time for everything to gel, but the team effort and team concept was there. Now the players have to execute. Your stars have to step up. And that's going to be one of the things with the Dallas, the way they want to play. One of the things when you run the football more and try and play more of a team aspect on defense and things like that, and across the board, it means you're going to get a lot of close games. It's just the fact of it. In the NFL, right? It's the Patriots, right? With their team mindset, right? A lot of close games. Puts a lot of pressure on your stars. Like, listen, you can't have drop passes, right? And days gone by with Dallas because they try to overwhelm you. If you dropped a few passes, and we find a way to overcome it, right? Or Micah Parsons or edge rusher, and you get buried inside on a pass rush and quarterback escapes, and we'll get him next down, right? Because that's fine. We're all about creating big plays. That's not going to happen as much with Dallas. So it's a lot more attention to detail. Fix it on defense in the second half. Drops reared its ugly head in the second half. Now it's about getting everything to line up. But again, a good solid performance overall. And then finally here, Sear Wilborn 3405 commented, Nick, what happened to your SMI partner? Yeah, my partner co-host Andrew, right? So we still are together. We still work, right? If you see our sort of main NFL channel where we cover most of the NFL and do a lot of different stuff, he's still there, of course. He's there on the college channel. It's this becoming a daily show. He doesn't have the time. He's not a Cowboys fan either, so he really doesn't necessarily want to talk about the Cowboys for 45 minutes every single day for the foreseeable future. But he's definitely still involved. So check out our main NFL channel. It's Saturday Morning Inspection, or SMI College Football Show. You'll see a lot of him, of course, but he's still definitely involved. He's my co-host. He's a partner in this, so he's definitely gonna be involved with some Cowboys content, probably more in the off season. But certainly, if you want to check more of what he has to say, and he's got some great stuff. I'm not just bragging. He does a really good job. Check out our flagship NFL or college show to get more of my co-host, Andrew. All right, I think that's all I've got for today, guys. Look, I mean, week 1 in the books, right? 0-1 stinks. Losing stinks, right? That's the reality of it. There are no moral victories, as everyone's fond of saying. But from an evaluation perspective against expectations, the Cowboys exceeded, right? They covered the spread. A lot of people said they could get dog walked against Philadelphia. Look, the talent gap was there, but it wasn't as big as a lot of people expected. Coaching was better than expected. I think it's one of those things where, you got to make a few plays down the stretch. Will CeeDee Lamb have 3 or 4 drives, however many it was, going forward every single game? Probably not. Will they lose a turnover battle every single game? Probably not. Will the opposition kicker bury a 58-yard field goal in outdoor weather every single game? Probably not, right? It's one of those things where, what happened in Philly's favor, Philly, good football team, really good football team, obviously, give them a lot of credit. Will that happen every single game and the Cowboys' mistakes? Most likely not. But it's about improving. It's about working ahead. We'll see what happens, of course. We've got a full slate of weekend games that are not Cowboys related, so make sure you enjoy that. We'll get with you with more news. We'll get film reviews coming out over the weekend, breaking down some of these guys, getting us some data over the coming days. But until then, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.